Good morning, everyone. For Telesur, I'm Cody Weddle in Caracas, Venezuela, and we begin in Mexico. We're following the revelation that 43 students were likely murdered. Protests and anger continued over the weekend. Six weeks have gone by since the disappearance of the 43 students in Mexico that sparked national and international condemnation. The exact details of the case still remain unknown. Early Sunday, protests turned violent in Mexico City's main square when angry protesters torched a main door to the presidential palace. It came after Attorney General Jesus Murillo revealed that 3 suspects in the case claimed that the students were burnt to ashes in Guerrero State and their remains placed in plastic bags that were thrown into a river. The Attorney General says 2 of the bags have been recovered, but that the remains were so decomposed that confirming their identity would not be possible. And our correspondent Clayton Kahn reports on how the case of the missing students has sparked a social crisis in Mexico.
This past weekend here, Mexico saw a spike in protests as a response to last Friday's announcement by the Attorney General that criminal gang members confessed to brutally killing the 43 Ayotzinapa students who have been disappeared since September 26th. Now, some of those protests spilled over into violence as government buildings became the targets, including the National Palace and Guerrero State Congress building, the targets of angry demonstrators. Now, 16 people remain detained out of those protests, and one witness who we interviewed said that police were arbitrarily detaining those who, quote, looked like students. Meanwhile, Mexico's President Enrique Peña Nieto says he denounces these acts of violent protests and also defends his decision to leave Mexico this past Sunday to visit China and Australia over trade deals. However, that decision is coming under heavy fire by some congressmen and social organizations, saying that the country is in a very critical moment. As always, we will keep you updated on all the recent information regarding Ayotzinapa. This is Clayton Kahn reporting for Telesur here.
And thanks to Clayton for his ongoing reporting. Uruguayan students also took to the streets Sunday to protest in solidarity with the missing Mexican students. Uruguayan activists and students joined a group of Mexican residents in Montevideo where they've displayed 43 empty school desks. They gathered in front of the University of Uruguay. The country of Uruguay lived through an era of harsh military rule for more than a decade. Hundreds of Uruguayan citizens disappeared. Moving on, Chilean President Michelle Bachelet arrived in China Sunday morning to participate in the 22nd Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit. Upon arrival, she met with Russian President Vladimir Putin to strengthen bilateral cooperation. Among other topics, the 2 leaders discussed cooperation in the area of education, security, energy, and culture. Only Chile, Peru, and Mexico will attend the APEC meeting. Peruvian President Ollanta Humala met with his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin in Moscow before traveling to the APEC summit in Beijing. Putin told Humala that Russia is interested in increasing imports of Peruvian fish, marine products, and fruit in the face of ongoing Western sanctions targeting the West. The 2 leaders signed customs, security, military, and tourism agreements. It marks the first official visit to Russia by a Peruvian head of state since the establishment of diplomatic relations between the 2 countries in 1969. Las Ñanitas is a pre-Hispanic religious celebration held in La Paz, Bolivia, that while once repressed is now being practiced in the open by more and more people. To explain what Bolivians are exactly celebrating, here's our correspondent David Doherty.
It's been a journey of epic proportions, spanning more than a decade and a 6 billion kilometer chase through the solar system. And now the day has finally come. The Rosetta unmanned spacecraft will launch a robot laboratory called Philae and attempt to land it on a comet for the first time in history. Designed by the European Space Agency, the 100-kilogram laboratory will touch down on Comet 67P, known as Churyumov-Gerasimenko.
Our apologies, clearly we have some problems with that story. Moving on, more than 2 million Catalans voted in Catalonia's non-binding referendum on independence, with over 80% backing the region's separation from Spain. President Mariano Rajoy's government said it would sue the Catalonian government of Artur Mas for disobeying a constitutional ruling that prohibited the referendum. The Spanish government said that even the non-binding consolation was unconstitutional. Madrid also ordered an investigation into the use of public buildings for Sunday's balloting. More than 300,000 people gathered in Berlin, Germany to celebrate the 25th anniversary of the fall of the Berlin Wall on Sunday. Over 800 white balloons spanning a 9-mile stretch were released into the sky. German Chancellor Angela Merkel and other dignitaries attended the ceremony, which included a performance of Beethoven's Ode to Joy. Intense artillery fire erupted in eastern Ukraine on Sunday. The latest wave of violence marks the worst attack since the signing of a ceasefire 2 months ago to end a war that has resulted in the death of 4,000 people. International observers urge both sides to comply with the rules of the Minsk agreements. Both parties accuse the other of violating the truce. Russia and China signed a $400 million natural gas agreement on Sunday. Under the measure, Russia will deliver 38 billion cubic meters of gas to China annually. The agreement paves the way for a contract to make China the largest consumer of Russian gas. Chinese President Xi Jinping and Russian head of state Vladimir Putin have signed several other accords. The latest deal coincides with this week's Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit. And Chinese President Xi Jinping and Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe held formal talks on Monday for the first time since the two leaders took office. The meeting between Xi and Abe comes 3 days after both countries agreed to work on improving ties and signaled willingness to resolve the territorial dispute over the Diaoyu Islands. Despite tense diplomatic relations, China has emerged as Japan's largest trading partner. Europe's unmanned spacecraft Rosetta has launched into space on an epic decade-long 4 billion-mile journey. Speeding at over 40,000 miles per hour, the ship will attempt to land a robot laboratory on a comet for the first time in history. Now, experts believe they will find ancient ice and dust on the comet's surface. Almost 5 billion years ago, they believe that ice and dust helped sow life on Earth after it collided with our planet. Scientists also believe that the comet provided Earth with complex organic carbon molecules and precious water, sparking the beginning of life on Earth. Plenty more on those stories and others at our website, telesurtv.net/English. For Telesur English, I'm Cody Weddle. Have a great Monday. Have a great week.